Was season 3 of Squid Games the grand finale we were all hoping it was going to be? You're about to find out. This is a spoiler review of Squid Games season 3. Let's get to it. Season 3 starts off right where season 2 ended, and it is with the rebellion ending. Sadly, they just could not fight off the head man, and they end up losing and a bunch of people die. However, player 456, they decide to keep him alive and bring him back into the game. Well, once he returns back into the living area of all the players, he becomes depressed, sad, and keeps to himself. He is not only blaming himself, but he is blaming player 388 for what occurred and why the rebellion failed, because player 388's mission was to go and collect ammo, but he did not return to the other. He ended up having a panic attack and didn't return with the ammo, which is why player 456 is blaming him for all the people who died with the rebellion. Well, now the players decided to vote, and they are going to continue playing the game. So the next game that occurs is a game of hide and seek. You have red players who get a knife, and they have to kill one person before the time runs out. They can't harm another red player. They can only kill blue players. Blue players all get a key, and they have to hide within the playing field and try and survive. There are ways out of this maze, but they have to find it, and once a door is unlocked, it cannot be locked again, and they each have a different key. There are 3 sets of keys that are within this maze. You have a circle, a triangle, and a square. So some people have circles that you can open the circle doors, and some have a square. They are trying to hide from red players, and a red player, for them to survive, has to kill a blue player, and a blue player to survive has to not get killed or find a way out. Now, I will say this hide and go seek game was the best game probably in season 2 and definitely in season 3 as a whole. The way they built up to it, it is very reminiscent of the marble game from season 1, I will say, and it was definitely the best episode of season 3. It was the one episode that I didn't feel bored, and throughout this whole season, I will say, I wouldn't say it's a bad season, but I would say it's just boring. I just got bored while watching this show. It's only 6 episodes, and I was just bored the whole time. I do think they could have really condensed and refined things and made it just season 2 and season 3 one big season. But sadly, they didn't do that, and we were just left with these 6 episodes, and honestly, they were just boring. And the games, as you continue throughout this season, just feel very reminiscent of season 1. And when I wanted to watch season 2 and season 3, I was hoping they would show something different about humanity, explore different concepts, like if you were trapped in this death game, but also making the games either more intense or a little bit different. But all the games, you can find parallels back to season 1. So I honestly felt like the games were a little disappointing, but I do think hide and go seek was the best game that occurred throughout this season. And the deaths that happened and the emotional build-up they did was fantastic. So I will say I really did enjoy this game in this episode. So overall, that is something they did very well. But the other games, I just didn't really feel that emotional impact. There is a jump rope. They have to go over a bridge and not get hit by this massive jump rope. And overall, there was not the same emotional impact when some of these characters died compared to the hide and go seek game and to the jump rope game. I just didn't feel like I cared about, because honestly, I don't really care about any of these players. I just don't. They never made me feel like I should care. I'm not going to care about a character on screen just because they're pregnant. It doesn't work that way. So within season 2 and season 3, I just felt emotional disconnect. I didn't care about any of these players I was watching on screen. So if they died, I was just like, oh, that person died, I called that. Or, oh, I didn't see them dying that way. That's kind of cool. They got me there. But that was about all the emotional impact that this season and season 2 had on me. And now we are going to discuss the grand finale, the last game, because player 222 does end up having her baby, and she does end up sacrificing herself, and she gives her baby to player 456 to protect. And he does achieve that goal. I will say that he protects the baby and ends up sacrificing his own life. He does end up dying. And honestly, I don't have a problem with him dying. That is not my problem. I will say though, his death scene, the build up, just didn't have the emotional impact that I was hoping to. So the baby ends up becoming a player. She becomes player 222 and ends up winning the whole game. And I think they did explore, they had some ideas there because player 333 is the father of the kid, and they do explore the idea if it was between your own child and you, who would you pick to live? Yourself or the child? And player 333 decides that he's going to sacrifice basically the baby, which ends up leading to his downfall. But they have ideas in this season that if they explored a little bit more, it would make this series way more interesting with the moral ramifications. You could really dive deep into ethics. It could have been amazing, but they have the ideas like sitting out on a platter and then they just chuck the platter away and that's about it. So there are ideas within this show that if they executed them right would be absolutely fantastic. And they tried with the baby, but their execution of it just didn't really work that well. Player 456 does meet with the headman player number 1, and their confrontation with each other was honestly disappointing. It was very brief. Player 456, you could tell he was surprised and shocked, and that's about it. But if I was there, I would have choked player 1 out. I'm just saying that would be my idea, but their confrontation was just not what you would expect, and honestly was disappointing and boring. And that is my overall review of this show. Season 3 would be, it was just boring, and they had all these great ideas and they didn't execute, which was so frustrating while watching it. I'm like, okay, this is an interesting part, they're gonna do something great, and then it was like, that's it? Really? So that was definitely a big problem. Now we are going to move on from the players before I get too mad, and we're going to go on to the other storylines that this season had, and we are going to talk about the detective. Now the detective, I liked him in season 1. I'm not even gonna lie, I know a lot of people were like, what's the point? But I was like, oh, they're gonna do something great in season 2 and season 3 with his character, and I do like the actor. I do watch Korean TV, and I've seen him in other shows, and I was like, he's good. Oh, they're gonna do something so great with his character. Well, he is out, scuba diving, searching for this island. The guy who saved him and is the fisherman turns out to be working for Squid Games and is just keeping his eye on him, making him go on this goose chase so he never ends up finding the island and ends up trying to kill the detective, but of course the detective gets away and he ends up finding the island, and he is literally on the island for 30 minutes. And yes, his brother's the headman, and when he confronts his brother, he just screams, "Why?" That's it, and then he leaves the island. You're telling me this man basically spent a whole season, years of his life, to find this island and to see his brother, and he only says why and then dips? That's insane. It's just so stupid. His plot arc, his character arc went nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. There was no point of him being in this show. I really thought maybe they were going to do something cool with his character, that he was going to get in, something like that, make it a little interesting. Nope. Absolutely none. There was no point in him. Just, so disappointing. Now we are going to get to the guard number 11. She was originally from North Korea, now she made it to South Korea, and she knows player 246 briefly, and she wants to save him so he can get back to his sick daughter. And she ends up saving player 246, and she almost sacrifices herself. She's about to give up, but she decides to escape the island and continue with her life. And I thought they were going to bring her character in to learn more about the guards, in which they do execute that. But again, there's really no point in what her character arc is and for the overall story. There was absolutely 0 point. If you got rid of her whole story along with player 246, there would be no point. It wouldn't affect anything. And within this season, we also see the VIPs. And let me tell you, within the first season, they had a purpose. It was fine seeing the back end. Oh, these rich people. Okay, they come off as snobs. That's sort of the point. That's all cool. Now, in season 3, they were just annoying. They just kept popping up and just kept talking. And I was about to fast forward my TV every time I saw them on the screen. They just came off more annoying. The information they were saying was not needed. It broke the momentum of what was occurring in the actual playing arena. It was just a horrible idea having them talk so much. Now, it was fine to have them here or there, seeing more of the back end of how the games run. That's all cool. But they just kept popping up. And it was driving me crazy, so I did not like the VIPs at all throughout this season. So that was just another thing that I felt like didn't really have to be in this season. So honestly, there was just a lot of things within the show that they decided to spend their time on that had no impact for the overall story. And that is really this show's problem. They have all these things going on and they don't know how to execute them to have a satisfying conclusion or to really impact the overall plot. Now, it does look like we are going to get in a Squid Games that is set in America, and honestly, I could care less. I don't even want to watch another thing of Squid Games because I do think there is a better show that is very similar to Squid Games but is way better, and that is Alice in Borderland. It's a Japanese show and it's on Netflix. And if you like Squid Games even a little bit, and if gore does not bother you at all, I would 100% recommend Alice in Borderland. It is a phenomenal show, and it does tackle the same ideas that Squid Games tries to, but it does it in a way better job. But overall, if I had to rate season 3, I don't think it's the worst season. Looking back, I would definitely say that season 2, I did not love as much. Season 3, especially with the hide and go seek game, that really bumped it up there. And of course, season 1 is the superior season. They probably should have just stopped after that, but hey, money is money. So overall, I think if you have been invested in Squid Games this long, you might as well. But if you have just seen Squid Games season 1, honestly, I would probably just stop after that. But that is just my thoughts on Squid Game season 3. Let me know yours and have a great day. Bye!